If I were to describe the dismal state of modern Star Wars, it'd be creative insecurity. The sequel trilogy spent more time course-correcting itself than delivering a good story. The Disney shows picked up the slack, but they didn't carry the franchise as hard as The Mandalorian did. He really needs to see a chiropractor. The Mandalorian was an incredible space western. The characters were interesting, the action was great, and it put in fresh intrigue into the Star Wars sandbox. When it teased a new Boba Fett show, I was immediately on board. I mean, there's no way they're gonna ruin such an iconic character, right? The Book of Boba Fett is a 2021 sci-fi western about a baby boomer getting into the crime business. After cheating death from a sarlacc pit, Boba Fett adopts a new desert lifestyle and ditches his old freelancing gig. Or so he would have liked. Fett swiftly conquers Jabba the Hutt's home turf, but not before all the crime lords challenge his legitimacy. To put it lightly, this show is a huge mess. It starts out slow, barely develops its key players, and then gives up on its own premise. It's like the showrunners couldn't decide if this was a standalone Boba Fett show or Mandalorian Season 3. They tried doing both, and somehow they still screwed it up. How exactly did this happen? Well, you've come to the right guy. Doing TV retrospectives after the fact is kind of my thing. Let's discover how such a promising show fell into the pit. As always, spoilers ahead. The series begins with Boba Fett vibing in his bacta tank. In a flashback, he escapes the Sarlacc pit and loses his armor. The Tusken Raiders capture Fett and force him to scout for water, but out of nowhere, Machamp attacks the tribe. Fett defeats the sand monster and saves the Tusken boy's life. The Tuskens go,
"Yo, Boba, you're better than we thought. How about we teach you our merciful ways?"
Boba's like, "This won't take up all my development, right? Right?" Fett teaches the Tuskens how to defend themselves with his tech, while he adapts to their customs. Wait, isn't this a repeat of that Help the Tuskens episode from Mando? The difference is that it plays a crucial role in shaping Fett's newfound morality. In the movies, Boba Fett was a mercenary who only cared for a paycheck. It didn't matter if you were dead or alive, Fett would snatch you up. In the show, he gets humbled by the Tusken tribe and learns to spare occasional mercy. I kinda dig this Tusken Fett plot. Fett learns about Tusken spirituality, the honorable ways they fight, and their value of teamwork. He embraces the positives of having a coordinated family. It hits even harder when he loses them to an off-screen massacre. This subplot had good build-up, a fun training montage, and culminates with Fett standing up for the tribe's land rights. The best moment has Fett and the Tuskens commandeer a spice train. Spice is essentially Moonawana.
My dad left home when I was 3. Told my mom he couldn't take it. It meaning me. And he was the alcoholic.
Moonaholic.
Whatever, dependent on Moonahol.
This scene is exciting, well shot, and a great payoff to the Tusken arc. I wonder what's next.
Wake up, boss.
Dude, what are you doing? No, don't wake up. We're getting to the good stuff. No. By far the worst aspect of Book of Boba Fett is the present day storyline. Oh god, where do I begin? After murdering Jabba the Hutt's successor, Boba Fett proclaims himself the new ruler of Mos Espa. Fett touts his power, but the local crime bosses think otherwise. He then encounters a boring action scene, gets injured, lies in his secret jacuzzi, and dreams about his more fulfilling backstory. That's how the first 4 episodes pan out. It's a good structure, in theory. In practice, the Mos Espa scenes are slow, monotonous, and don't amount to much. What does Fett do? He does some loyalty quests in the city, fails, and then takes a nap. Boba Fett used to be a cunning warrior, but here, he loses all his stats in perception and self-defense. In Mando Season 2, he took out those stormtroopers like a champ. But when it comes to riot shields, he's a lost cause. All it takes is a few taser sticks, and he's exhausted. Like, dude, use your jetpack. The fight scenes are a mixed bag. Some scenes, like the desert train heist, are well done. The Mos Espa fights are the exact opposite. They're clunky, poorly cut together, and have the tension of a wimpy cushion. This shocked me considering the show's primary director, Robert Rodriguez, is a low-budget action director that I admire. He directed the Boba Fett return episode in Mandalorian, and it was pretty sick. In Boomer Fett, Rodriguez dropped the ball big time. I mean, this is the same guy who made Spy Kids 3. Crappy graphics aside, those set pieces were imaginative and perfectly fit that bombastic tone. Rodriguez knows how to deliver larger-than-life spectacle. When it comes to more grounded brawls, he falls completely flat. His worst offense is the speeder chase in episode 3. Boba sends his cyborg goons after the town mayor. It's poorly staged, moves at a snail's pace, and just reeks of cheapness. Everyone likes to bash the brightly colored Power Ranger-esque scooters, but seriously, even Power Rangers has more impressive vehicles. Back in the past, Fett stumbles across Fennec Shand, a skilled mercenary on the brink of death. He revives her at a cyborg clinic. She's like,
"Why did you save me? I thought you were a cold-hearted killer."
He answers, "Yeah, that was cool for a time, but I almost died on the job. I went to a Tuscan conference once, and now Mercy's my new thing. Join me, and we can get payback from our employers." Shand accepts the deal. Cool, we get to see how Fett's mercy rubs off on Shand. Nope, we barely see that development. She instantly becomes Fett's right-hand woman. Back in the present, the crime lords announce to Boba that the Pike Syndicate will soon invade his city. Wait, what syndicate? You know, those generic greedy spice dudes that were briefly shown? It turns out Mos Espa is a spice hotspot, and Fett wants it clean. The Pikes weren't happy with that. Fennec Shand declares,
"Sir, we're low on soldiers and our ratings are plummeting."
Fett is like, "This is bad. We need muscle."
"I know exactly who to call."
You're Jango Fett, the most ruthless bounty hunter the galaxy has ever seen.
He'll want to latch on to, or maybe it would be me going, "Get off that game and do some homework."
We pick up on everyone's favorite Mandalorian, Din Djarin. He scores a bounty hunter gig, but not before injuring himself on the job with his newly acquired darksaber. Din heads back home on a Halo ring, only to face trouble from his roommates. His friends discover he did a face reveal, which is against their code. He's like,
Guys, I took off my helmet for 10 million subs. To save Grogu.
"Sorry man, unless you redeem yourself in Mando Season 3, we're kicking you out. While you're at it, here's a gift for Baby Yoda." Din makes a side trip to Mos Eisley and fixes up an old Naboo starfighter. This episode doesn't rely on big revelations or bad fight scenes. Instead, it beautifully explores the mundane aspects of Din's life. Unlike the Mos Espa scenes, which lasted for eternity, Din's subplot uses its limited runtime much more effectively. This episode sprinkles many great touches. We see Din's longing to see Grogu again. He also interacts with the best droid ever, BD-1. Din gives his Naboo hot rod a metallic makeover and flies it around the pod race canyon. Is this an extended prequel callback? Absolutely. No matter how much I despise the Phantom Menace, that pod racing scene is still a technical marvel. This flight scene alone is spectacular, the camera framing is razor sharp, and it's visually striking compared to the earlier episodes. Fennec Shand then offers Din a job. He accepts the gig, but first, he needs to visit his son. Mandalorian Season 3 is starting off pretty strong. Oh, right. I forgot I was watching a Boba Fett show. Get this. The best episode of Boba Fett has zero Boba Fett. The series drops its title character and switches to Mando Season 3. You know, I get why they brought Din back. He was a fan favorite and a big moneymaker. As we see later, it sucks out the identity of the main event. You know, Boba, the guy the show is named for? Mando visits a Jedi training ground. Din spots Grogu and his new Jedi Master, creepy CGI deepfake Luke. Okay, let me get this off my chest. The digital reconstruction of an actor's likeness is impressive, I'll admit that, but it always looked off. I hated this practice in Mando Season 2, and I still hate it now. Disney has literally all the money to hire a good impersonator, but they do this instead. Din learns that Luke doesn't tolerate visitors. He leaves his gift for Grogu and returns to Tatooine. Team Fett explains they'll need reinforcements to fend off the Pike invasion. Din convinces his Freetown allies to join the fight, but Cad Bane throws a wrench in the plan. Oh yeah, Cad Bane's here. Alright, for those who don't know, Cad Bane was a formidable bounty hunter in the Clone Wars cartoon. He ran circles around the Jedi. But why did they drop him in the second to last episode? Wouldn't you want to establish him like day one? The creators were like,
Crap, the Pikes are too boring. Who can pose a credible threat to Team Fett?
What about the blue guy from the Clone Wars?
Brilliant!
Team Fett valiantly defends the town center. Oh, I'm sorry, this burnt out husk of a bar. At first, their camping playstyle works.
Oh, baby, a triple!
But unfortunately, the Pikes then hack the lobby and spawn two unstoppable droids. Boba launches his Rancor killstreak and pulverizes the robots. This final battle is a mixed bag. On one hand, the animal part of my brain loved the spectacle. Boba and Din fighting together is cool to see. Both men discuss fighting for the town's honor no matter the odds. I wish both dudes had more dialogue together. My favorite part was when the Rancor started ripping those droids and then climbed the tower King Kong style. My inner 8-year-old was smiling. Unfortunately, when you think about it, this finale falls apart. 1. The Pikes are really boring cannon fodder. They have a distinct lack of personality, other than respawning endlessly. They're basically Power Ranger foot soldiers. No, I take that back. The foot soldiers in Power Rangers actually have unique quirks. And honestly, they pose more of a threat than the Pikes ever did. 2. Team Fett barely suffers a dent. The Wookiee dude gets clobbered multiple times, but by the end, he's perfectly fine. No one gets seriously injured or loses a limb. Those 2 droidicas, even when cornering the team, barely match a scratch. Their aiming is as accurate as the stormtroopers in A New Hope. And 3. Cad Bane is barely in the fight. He warns Boba at the start, slips into the shadows, and then appears at the very end. What was he doing that whole time? Smoking a spice joint? Fett initiates a 1v1 match with Cad Bane. Cad monologues about slaying clone kind, but Fett finishes him off. You know, if they didn't rush Cad Bane's inclusion, this would have been a really awesome payoff. Team Fett drives away the Pikes, despite the citywide rubble. Shan's like,
What do we do now?
Fett answers, I have no idea. I'd rather retire. Oh, and Wookiee dude, here's an orange for your efforts. No grand speech discussing what Team Fett learned, no scene of them rebuilding the city. Boba just shrugs his shoulders. That's Boomer Fett for you. Oh, and Grogu's back. What's he doing here? It turns out he got Din's gift, which convinced him to ditch deepfake Luke's training. So now, Baby Yoda and Space Dad are reunited. They board Din's starcraft and hyperjump to Mandalorian Season 3. There's just a tiny problem. Grogu's decision to abandon the Jedi comes way too quickly. I mean, I like Baby Yoda as much as the next guy, but bringing him back this early sucks the impact out of such a great reunion. The only reason he's back is Disney's impatience on selling more Grogu toys. His return fails to invigorate an underwhelming series. The Book of Boba Fett had a lot going for it, but then completely lost faith in its own story. It does a decent job setting up Boomer Fett's redemption arc, but those present day scenes are so boring, I'd rather sleep in that space jacuzzi. Boba Fett himself is a joke. He learns mercy through a Tusken adventure and then suddenly becomes a static prop. The Mos Espa fights could have easily been truncated, and there's too much reliance on flashbacks. In fact, the show peaks when it's just Din Djarin's story. Even as a huge Mandalorian fan, I knew that Din's inclusion is a clear sign of desperation. Din could have been a supporting character who briefly helped Fett, but no, we gotta shove in Mando Season 3 cause we got nothing else of substance here. Grogu coming back this early undermines the point of Mando Season 2. Din spent the whole time finding a Jedi home for Grogu. When the two finally separated, I almost cried. It was such a powerful ending. I'm open to the idea of Din and Grogu reuniting at some point. If they saved that moment after a whole season of build-up, it could have been amazing. Instead, Grogu lands on Din's lap in the middle of a city war. Sure, why not? Let's add more stuff on top of an already mindless climax. You may think, Green Boy, they made this series in the middle of a pandemic. Cut them some slack. That's no excuse for poor planning. You're telling me they could map out 2 amazing seasons of Space Dad, but not a coherent arc for Boomer Fett? The best way I can describe this show is creative insecurity. The showrunners started off with an interesting backstory, got bored halfway through, and decided to tack on a far superior series. They didn't fully commit to Fett's transition to a good guy. Aside from the Mando-focused episodes, the cinematography lacks any kind of flair. The Robert Rodriguez-directed episodes have some of the most embarrassing stunt work in the franchise. They had some top-notch talent, and yet they failed to bring justice to such a well-established icon. And after seeing that trailer for Obi-Wan Kenobi, fingers crossed that they don't mess that up. In conclusion, the Book of Boba Fett is a disappointing entry to the Star Wars franchise. The production design and visual effects are top-notch. The Tusken Raider and Din Djarin subplots are legitimately good, but to get to those good parts, you need to slog through a story that lacks conviction. It also tarnishes the emotional integrity of a much better series. This is not the way. Thank you for watching, and for that, I have spoken.